Welcome, everyone. Wow, this works. I'm always still so fascinated whenever sort of like this just works and microphones are on. Welcome so much to this last keynote panel session at the National Offshore Wind Research and Development Consortium Symposium, 4th edition, here from NYU Tandon in downtown Brooklyn. It's a real pleasure to have everyone with us today. I'm hoping that there's lots of people with us online as well, but welcome also to everyone here in the room. My name is Tone Sondergaard, and I'm the director of the Offshore Wind Innovation Hub, which is part of NYU Tandon's Urban Future Lab. We are an innovator, accelerator, and co-working space down in Industry City in Sunset Park here in Brooklyn as well. With me today, I have an esteemed panel that for the next 45 minutes will take you through some of the very exciting and new innovation testing facilities that are coming online in this region. So we're really excited about sharing that with you all today. But before we dive more into this, I want to give my panelists a little chance to introduce themselves and introduce the entities that they do represent. So, Jennifer, do you want to be first?
Sure. Good evening. Thanks for sticking into Now RDC for hosting a wonderful symposium. My name's Jen Becker. I'm Vice President of Offshore Wind at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And as part of my role, I oversee our offshore wind sector development as well as the Wind Institute for Innovation and Training. The Wind Institute is New Jersey's coordinated effort to bring stakeholders together, coordinate resources, deploy resources around two core objectives. So the first is to accelerate the development of a robust and diverse offshore wind workforce, and the second is to champion research and innovation that unlocks market potential. So EDA in New Jersey, offshore wind is managed and propelled forward by a number of different government agencies, and EDA, the agency that I'm with, is really focused on the economic development aspects of building up the offshore wind industry in the state and the region.
Amazing. Thank you, Jen. Sam, you're next.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Now RDC, for having me here. I'm Sam Jung. I'm a Vice President of Renewable Energy Industry Development at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. I focus on industry development efforts for offshore wind, electric vehicles, storage, and solar within the 5 boroughs. The New York City Economic Development Corporation is a quasi-public entity that's responsible for advancing the mayor's economic development agenda across the city. We are the city's largest landlord. We own and manage about 66 million square feet of real estate. We utilize that to drive our initiatives to generate good family-sustaining jobs and also to spur small business development across the city. And we're also responsible for cultivating legacy industries like film and television and emerging innovation sectors and high-growth industries like offshore wind. And so putting all those ingredients together, the city in 2021 released a 15-year offshore wind vision plan, which had a concomitant investment of $191 million to activate our sites and infrastructure to become best-in-class assets to accelerate the development of offshore wind farms. We have a second prong to really support our local talent and businesses to enter into and capture value from the offshore wind industry. And last and most relevant to this conversation is to really leverage the 2 decades of investments into our now second largest global tech ecosystem to become the center and leader of offshore wind innovation for the nation and hopefully for the world. And so I'll pause it at that and pass it over to my colleague, Bruce.
Great. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again for those of you who attended the supply chain panel earlier. My name is Bruce Carlisle. I'm Managing Director for Offshore Wind with the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, or MassCEC. So we are a state economic development agency focused on the clean energy and climate tech sectors, supporting the Commonwealth and meeting its net zero by 2050 goals. We work primarily in sort of 4 focus areas, offshore wind, obviously, but also in building decarbonization, clean transportation, and net zero grid. And throughout those focus areas, very acutely aware on supporting job growth and workforce development in the clean energy sector, and with an eye towards technology development and investments for startups and other businesses. In offshore wind, my group, what we don't do is the procurements or any of the regulatory jurisdictional permitting work. We do a lot of the other work in terms of planning analysis, sector development, which incorporates supply chain, workforce, ports and infrastructure, and also research and innovation, which we'll talk about more this evening. Back to you, Tana.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. So with today's discussion, what we're really hoping to sort of like zoom in on, right? It's like these innovation facilities or programs or initiatives that in some shape or form makes available infrastructure or programming that is a key for early research and startups of the like to use during their commercialization or validation phase. And I've given each of you the hard challenge of trying to pinpoint 2 or 3 sort of like key initiatives that you would like to focus on in this discussion. And I will tell you guys, that was kind of difficult getting you to zoom in on only that few. But I hope you will each sort of like help us, give us a little bit of an overview of the initiatives that you either have already in place or that you are sort of like planning on establishing in the near future. And I don't think, Bruce, why don't we start with you again?
Oh, there's a...
It's a twist.
Yeah, I know. Keep us on our toes. I thought I was just going to ride. These guys were going to talk, and then I was going to fill in. No, happy to jump in. And maybe not a new facility, but certainly a tremendous asset for offshore wind and land-based wind is our Wind Technology Test Center in Boston, which is the largest indoor blade testing facility in North America. Offers a full suite of certifications, including multi-axis static and fatigue tests, essentially simulating a 25-year field operation life in a 6 to 8 month program. The team at WTTC has run about 55 unique programs comprising hundreds of blades. I don't know if any of you have ever had a chance to visit, but it's a pretty awesome facility. 3 test stands and the ability to accommodate blades or blade sections up to 90 meters. Including the tests that we've done already have included the new GE Haliade X blade, obviously without its tip in those dimensions. We are working on expanding that facility to accommodate the latest and next generation of offshore wind blades. Looking out into the future, we have been looking hard at our Massachusetts and Mass CEC specifically role in the emerging offshore wind and really ocean renewable energy industry. And we are really using the term ocean renewable energy instead of offshore wind, while commercial fixed bottom is obviously in play and well underway and floating in early commercial stages. We anticipate floating to play a big role in our energy future. But we also recognize that while maybe not commercially viable or sort of significant, that tidal and wave are important energy components in ocean renewable energy. And then there's the sort of related sectors. I won't get into that. But we've in our journey, sought the support of a consultancy to help examine where some of our programs or investments could be best leveraged, and competitively selected DNV Energy Insights to help us on that journey. And coming out the other side, we've identified 3 tracks that we are rolling out. The first track is a Ocean Renewable Energy Innovation Center to be based out of the New Bedford area in Massachusetts, really focused on supporting early stage entities, startups in commercializing and supporting their technologies and IP. So that would be through business mentorship, supply chain networking support, co-located facilities in a location on the waterfront, access to deep water port, and access to the offshore wind areas. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that, and will. The second track is supporting our academic and research institutions who are very key partners. As we heard earlier today and throughout the symposium, our universities and other research partners are really critical to this journey. And so on that track, we will continue to support Now RDC and other partners in coordinated solicitations and joint industry programs. Happy to be part of the current Now RDC UK, Innovate UK one, for example. But we're also launching a new Massachusetts-based sort of research grant opportunity, probably in Q1 of 2024, supporting different applied research, modeling, monitoring, testing programs. So keep an eye out for that. In that track also, and I'll be brief, winding down, we will continue to support our partners through matching federal funding opportunities or federal grants. We've got a very mature Amplify Mass program, but we're also committing resources, for example, in the Department of Energy's Center of Excellence and other opportunities that may be out there. So the last track is offshore renewable energy or ocean renewable energy testing and validation assets. We have heard loud and clear that value proposition as part of all this is access to offshore. And we intend to be out with requests for interest, looking to industry to help identify their needs. We have a sense of some of them, working towards the feasibility and potential work on a site in state or federal waters that different entities can access for testing, validation, and verification services.
Thank you, Bruce. So just to sum up a little bit, we have a blade testing center, and then we have 3 new things coming online: your innovation center in New Bedford, applied R&D grants, and a test and validation asset program. I'm trying to sum this up to sort of like keep everyone sort of like mentally in line. Because next up is you, Sam, and you have a little bit of a head start because Cecilia Kushner this morning essentially gave a little bit of an insight into some of the Innovation Coast plans here in New York City. But we're excited to hear maybe a little bit more about what's in store, so floor is yours.
Yeah, as you all probably know, we in New York have an offshore wind goal of 9 gigawatts by 2035 and a goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2040. And so as we've been contemplating what our climate innovation strategy will look like, we first 2 years ago set out to market with the offshore wind innovation request for information, because at the time we had some assets and money allocated from the original $191 million commitment from the city to invest in offshore wind-specific innovation facilities. What came back were 14 robust responses from industry, and what they said loud and clear was that they needed big facilities like wave and wind testing facilities and R&D labs, and multiple avenues by which to test emerging technologies. We, at the time, were set to embark on an RFP strategy for those innovation needs specific to the offshore wind industry. And as you all probably have heard from Cecilia Kushner, our Chief Strategy Officer, this morning, our leadership at the organization wanted to go bigger and broader, given the critical nature of the climate crisis that we're facing. And so when we took to take an inventory of our assets in the city, we found, particularly along the coast of the East River, there were established innovation facilities from Cornell Tech, which was first established to diversify our economy in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, who's now churning out technologies, particularly in urban tech. There is the Brooklyn Navy Yard that has had a massive history in shipbuilding for the Navy, which has now turned its campus in part into a testing and piloting facility itself, and is home, obviously, to New Lab, where we'll be later on. And then as you move further south, there is Governor's Island, which has just announced a Climate Solutions Center. And so there is this whole nexus of innovation activity happening north to south along the East River and into the New York Harbor. And we end up at Sunset Park, which has been a historic environmental justice community and has created a community-based plan to activate that waterfront for green industrial manufacturing purposes. And so as we saw all of these assets in community-based synergies, we thought that we could go and invest bigger beyond offshore wind, but inclusive of it, to create a climate innovation hub at BAT. And so that is our first and biggest climate innovation investment that we'll be coming to market with in January. That really came from a need to not only account for offshore wind industry actors' needs, but also for other industries across what we're calling the green economy. And we've heard from stakeholders that co-working space, prototyping space, shared equipment, manufacturing space, testing and piloting space is an area where the municipal government in particular can come in and provide some catalytic support. And so we're excited to put that RFP out in January. As Cecilia mentioned this morning, we have a partner forum where we want to hear from entities, maybe like the ones in this room, who want to go in on developing up to 150,000 square feet of real estate assets at BAT for this purpose. So invite you to fill that form out if you're interested. I think the second program that I want to give a shout out to is our Pilots at BAT program. And so the Brooklyn Army terminal that I mentioned is over 4 million square feet. There's tons of building-based systems across the 4 acres that it's on. And so we've, as EDC, worked with our asset management team to create 8 different zones within the campus of BAT itself to enable entrepreneurs and companies to bring in their prop tech or building decarbonization tech to test their prototypes on our buildings so that they get the data that they need in order to iterate and eventually commercialize their products so that we can accelerate our processes to meet our local law 97 goals, which for those of you who are not local to New York City, it's one of our most robust climate legislation that puts a carbon cap on buildings over 25,000 square feet. And we're beginning to hit one of the implementation milestones next year. And so there's no time to waste, and we're very happy to afford one of our legacy assets to that end.
Amazing, thank you, Sam. And to sum up, very much on BAT and the different programmings happening at BAT, so that's lovely to hear. I hope everyone kind of like followed along there and kind of have a mental visual from Cecilia's presentation this morning. All that being said, before I give the floor to you, Jen, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who wants to send questions to this lovely panel. Now is your chance. I think Slido, as many of you have now become very familiar with, is also ready to take your questions, so keep that coming while we keep talking up here, so send us some questions. Jennifer, tell us about what's going on in New Jersey.
Yeah, happy to. There's a lot going on in New Jersey and in our nearby region as well, which is very exciting. So New Jersey, as many of you might know, has a offshore wind target of 11 gigawatts by 2040, and innovation is a big part of that, and really making sure that we're developing this industry in a really efficient and responsible way. New Jersey innovation is really driving factor of our economic development strategy. So Governor Murphy, when he came into office, developed our economic development plan, which is a state of innovation. We have 10 strategic sectors in New Jersey, and innovation is a core part of all of them, including offshore wind. So as I mentioned before, we've created the Wind Institute for Innovation and Training, which has a dual focus on workforce development and innovation. And so there's two programs or initiatives that I wanted to share with you that the Wind Institute is pursuing. So the first is several months ago, we conducted a feasibility study on the need and opportunity for an innovation center and testing facilities in New Jersey. We looked at what our objectives were in our state, what our competitive advantages were, where there were gaps in the market, and where it made sense for New Jersey to take a leadership role. So we outlined a number of different objectives, including access to innovation facilities, collaboration, leveraging existing assets, and really wanting to develop sort of signature state-of-the-art facilities that not only help New Jersey build its offshore wind industry, but to really help the region as a whole. So building off of that feasibility study, we identified a number of core areas that we thought made sense for us to pursue, and we issued a request for expressions of interest several months ago. We received a number of proposals, and we're currently under review, so I can't go into the specifics of what the plans are per se, but just to highlight a little bit about what our vision is for this center. So it really is a physical asset, a signature state-of-the-art facility that we're looking at that brings together convening spaces to host events like this, which are so important, office space, labs, and testing facilities. So the 5 core focus areas that we looked at that we're interested in focusing on for this facility are climate smart modeling for high performance wind farms, technological solutions for environmental impact assessments, offshore wind transmission and grid integration, grid storage and power to X, and finally offshore wind component design. So those 5 areas we're really looking at what are the focus areas that we already have kind of research expertise in, or existing lab spaces or other assets that we can build upon. In particular, I would say transmission is an area where I think New Jersey's already taken a leadership role and is critically important for the development of the industry. We initiated what's called a state agreement approach, which really took a novel approach to transmission planning that we have rolled out in New Jersey. And so we were looking at 2 core testing facilities to complement that office and lab space. So one around transmission testing, so whether that's interoperability for HVDC or other critical transmission focus areas, and then deep saltwater tank or sort of access to in-water testing, particularly for environmental impact assessment technologies. So that's we're really excited because I think we'll be able to share some more very soon about this Wind Innovation Center. And we are utilizing a funding stream that we've developed at EDA, which is called our Strategic Innovation Centers, which is a sort of a flexible funding stream, which has been very exciting to give us a lot of opportunity to do equity investments in innovation centers. We've done this already. One of the innovation centers that are already online is HACS in Newark, which invests in hard tech technology, clean tech technology, and so looking to use that model for the Wind Innovation Center. And then just quickly, I'll just add one other initiative that we have underway, not a testing facility per se, but a big part of our research and innovation program is our Wind Institute Fellowship Program. So we're now in our 2nd year. We are partnering with 8 research universities in New Jersey, so our top research universities, both public and private, where we are providing financial support to students, that's undergrad, master's, and PhD students, to pursue offshore wind-related research. So the schools go about making their selections of the students. They pair them with an advisor, and then they conduct their research over the course of the year. We're providing them financial support, and then we bring the students together as a cohort across the 8 universities on a monthly basis for additional learnings, workshops. We actually just did a mock BOEM auction workshop the other day. So it's really bringing and giving resources to sort of this next generation of researchers and innovators that help drive the industry forward in New Jersey.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much for that. And I'm hearing lots of initiatives coming on, like the Wind Institute, labs, testing facilities, offices, deep water salt tank, transmission opportunities, or transmission testing opportunities. Very exciting. And thank you so much for also sharing a little bit about where you are in the process and how you sort of like went about selecting those areas, because that's kind of one of the things that I think would be interesting for us to understand a little bit better. And I don't know, Ruth, or you, maybe you were the one who touched less upon that in in your remarks before, sort of, how did you go about selecting the areas that you're focusing on? How are you thinking about gaps? How are you thinking about maybe even about regional collaborations or sort of like divide and conquer tactics?
Sure. Yeah, I think we, obviously we're supported by DNV on this, but have done a lot of thinking and a lot of engagement ourselves. One of the key aspects of DNV's work was a really in-depth stakeholder interview process where they spoke to major developers, tier one suppliers, other folks in the industry, small businesses, existing businesses in the marine science and technology space, local state government agencies, peer organizations, really to sort of understand, the needs and also I think sort of how are we organizing. I talked about those 3 tracks. How are we organizing our potential investments and our role in that space? We wanted to be additive and not detract or otherwise, take away from existing programs and initiatives. So, when we look at, needs from the industry, we clearly heard of the importance of our research and academic institutions. So our intent there is to support those efforts and to lean in, to give them the tools and the connections necessary. Likewise, when you look at industry, mostly it's the tier ones and some of the others, but joint industry programs or projects. We've got a WindStar program at UMass Lowell, which is very mature in that space, and partners such as now RDC and others who are gaining traction and would be good venues and forums for JIPs. And so it was really, I think, a question of where we can be additive. And one thing we heard across the board was supply chain networking and business support was one area in which we heard loud and clear that all of these different stakeholders saw a need for. We also heard very loud and clear that we have some really good incubators and accelerators in the Commonwealth and in the region. But there's one sort of missing ingredient, and that's this connection to be able for these technologies, many of which we heard about today and in the last session, is access to ocean and offshore locations. And I know the folks at Ørsted field questions all the time, inquiries about how do we, 5 turbines in the water, how can I get access to that? So what we found was, putting together a center on the water in New Bedford that's going to have quayside access, laydown access, and then some of the other sort of core fabrication, light manufacturing, electrical and sort of cleanish room, sensor development, along with the ability for startups to leverage co-work, convening space, access to services was really, really important. The last part of it is, the track 3 for us, which is, these assets. So we welcome conversations and partnerships with my partners, my colleagues up here, and others, partners at National Renewable Energy Labs, partners overseas. We don't intend to be investing big dollars in areas which, again, are duplicative or where there's not value proposition and need from industry. But we heard loud and clear that access to a site or sites with some type of assets, whether it be a barge, some moorings existing, or most critically, essentially a line of sight, either what we're calling sort of pre-permitted or a one-stop shop type of a permanent approach to reduce that time, that risk for those entities was really, really important.
Thank you, Bruce. One of you other want to sort of like jump on this one as well and talk a little bit about how you identified gaps and maybe sort of like trying to precisely what you're saying, right, Bruce? We have a limited amount of steel in water still, and how that sort of like informed the type of facilities you're looking at.
We did undertake we had a consultant come on board and help us do a feasibility study as well. So as I was outlining before, a number of stakeholders, it sounds like a very similar process to what Massachusetts did. And I think, it's coming up in offshore wind innovation. It comes up in every topic I work on supply chain issues. I think it really does it makes sense, and it's really on all of us at the state level and the federal level to make sure that we're coordinating and that we're not duplicating and working in silos. I mean, a lot of what we've been doing at the Wind Institute is coordinating among our universities and local stakeholders, even in just New Jersey, but certainly making sure that we're working across the region and making sure that we are building upon each other and not in competition. Certainly in research, I mean, it's really how can you have access to information to build on each other's strengths. So, but to answer your question, we similarly did a pretty robust feasibility study, talking to a number of stakeholders. I think we came to similar conclusions as my colleagues up here have shared.
Yeah, just on this note of collaboration and building on synergies in response to market demand, I was fortunate enough to have been leading our internal market assessment of offshore wind innovation needs at the same time that the NJDA was. And so I worked closely with your colleague, who's now departed, on determining where the needs were aligning and where they were diverging. And so it was great that we ultimately came to a similar list of needs that the offshore wind innovation industry ecosystem needed. And then when we found that, for example, like wave and wind testing facilities, large saltwater tank testing facilities were needed, it then became clear to us that we had to take stock of what we as New York City had in terms of a premium value add that could work synergistically with the assets that New Jersey, for example, has. And so obviously real estate is constrained in the city. And so I think the bigger infrastructure projects, we felt like our partners across the river could probably stand up in support of our regional offshore wind ecosystem. But for us, because of that constraint, we look towards our strengths, which is being a leader in finance, being a leader in the global tech industry. We have a lot of academic institutions here. We have over 100. We have 3 R1 universities, one of which includes NYU. We have a lot of talent. And we have a lot of potential investors. And so I think, given that, we found that a focus on climate tech hardware companies was something that we could really address, particularly for companies that have hit a TRL readiness level of 7 to 9 and are at this commercial inflection point 4 per elemental accelerators framework, where they're at the cusp of piloting at a commercial scale but don't have the resources to do so or the purpose-built infrastructure to rent or go to actually test their products in a real-life condition. And so the major need that we've been identifying and hearing from industry stakeholders is this need for purpose-built infrastructure that is set up to some degree in response to specific technologies and specific industries. And so that's in part what we're trying to do with our Pilots at Bat effort, to try to focus part of the campus on building decarbonization, but also allow other parts of the campus to be activated and turned into purpose-built infrastructure to meet that market gap, because we similarly have heard the need for in-water testing, particularly for maritime tech, blue tech, and we have 4,000 feet of linear feet of water frontage that is facing directly into the harbor, which we hope to activate. So these are some of the things that we've taken into stock as we turn and pivot, not away from offshore wind, but kind of go and broaden that umbrella for the broader green economy.
Thank you, Sam. And I love that you, in your response, literally replied to one of the questions that we got in through Slido, which was precisely what TRL levels, technology readiness level, are your programs sort of like targeting to assist, essentially? So I think you talked a little bit about it, and I want to open it up to the rest of you as well. But maybe do you want to talk a little bit how you sort of like go about programming and precisely providing access? We're all talking about these facilities, but making it as concrete as we can. If people are in the audience, like how do I get access to BET or the BET Lab Center or some of these things?
Yeah, so there's Pilots at Bat, which is an ongoing program. They have rolling applications for companies who have TRL levels closer to like 5 or 6, I think. And what you do is just apply online. We go to edc.nyc, and there's a web page for pilots at BAT. We've tried to streamline the application process to get back to you within 2 weeks. And we do a cohort program, so we take applications on a rolling basis, but we do try to put businesses together in a cohort. And then it's just a matter of working with our asset managers if the product is deemed eligible for the infrastructure that we have, to kind of figure out the insurance requirements and the construction or capital requirements, if any, that are needed to install the technology. I do think that there is a time-bound period where that technology can be put into or onto our building. So there are certain parameters around how long that piece of technology can be there, but we're hungry and excited to serve industry, and we've received 18 applications since the program went live in September. We are now we just closed on our second cohort, so we are seeing massive demand. Last year alone, we had over 600 companies apply for about a dozen city-run or city-affiliated piloting programs, and we could only enable 50 of those companies to pilot. And so we really want to meet that pipeline of businesses that are trying to test their products, particularly given the impending climate timelines of our goals. So happy to talk about that program. And for the Climate Innovation Hub at BAT, in January, we're going to be putting out a RFP for potential operators. So hope to give more insights on how that program or infrastructure will be run later next year.
Thank you, Sam. And I want to turn this to you, Bruce, because we got another question from the audience, from Jason, who is asking precisely when can we expect there to be testing facilities at New Bedford? Like, what is the timeline looking? So if you want to hit that and talk a little bit about the programming and the access you're envisioning for those initiatives you just told us about.
Sure. Happy to. So maybe sort of two responses here. One is on the Innovation Center. So our timeline there is this coming year, 2024, will be site selection process, and then retrofit and build out. That'll probably carry into 25. But we intend to launch in the second half of 25 by 26. And there's a lot of work sort of along the way. I do want to highlight that we will be going out and seeking similarly expressions of interest for various roles and partnerships. We'll be looking for a third party to really sort of step in and operate. Mass CEC will continue to be involved. We will be the prime on the center, but we will look to establish partners to help us on that front. And we're looking to industry and others for programming. And we're getting a lot of positive signals from industry on that. In terms of a potential, let's call it a pre-permitted sort of testing site. I think using an envelope type of approach, similar to what BOEM does offshore, but on a much smaller scale, I think we can get there. We're just starting really on the sort of due diligence piece on that. So I think it's fair to expect probably by the end of the year an request for request for information. There's a lot of letters floating in my brain right now where we have a suite of specific questions for different types of interested parties. But in order for us to be intelligent about what we might want to do, we have to have a reasonable sense of what we might expect to see out there. Is it a moored structure? Is it a fixed structure? Are you there for a year? Are you there for 5 years? Are you there for 2 months? That type of thing. So that'll probably take us into Q1 and Q2, and then we will, if favorable, and I think we will see a favorable response on that, sort of put together the preferred approach and start that site selection and process. So, again, probably we're looking at 2025 before entities would be able to access anything through that. Now, there's people who need a faster pace. We're here to help, and we'll continue to support stakeholders in trying to meet their needs on a case-by-case basis.
Thanks, Bruce. Jen, I want to give you the opportunity also just to answer that. Like, how mature are you anticipating the companies or the innovations to be that you're looking to support with your innovation center?
Yeah, I think it depends. I feel like just because we're currently under review of the responses we received, I can't say too much about that just now. But we do already have a number of programs in place in New Jersey, most of which are run by a sister agency to EDA, which is the Commission on Science, Innovation, and Technology. So they are designed to work with startup companies in a number of industries, but including in offshore wind and in clean tech and the larger green economy. And they have a program right now. I just wanted to kind of make a plug for it because we're talking about access and different types of companies. So they have a program called the Clean Tech R&D Voucher Program. So various lab spaces, at universities or federal labs that are in New Jersey. This program will provide essentially a voucher for companies that are looking, or other entities that are looking to use that space that might otherwise not be able to, as an early stage company, maybe perhaps don't have the budget to do so. So that's a program that we have already in place today that people can access, and we have so many different facilities and wave tanks and different types of labs in New Jersey already. And through this program, a wide range of companies can utilize those.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience that I think is kind of interesting, and which maybe also leads me to the last part of our discussion, as we have 5 or 6 minutes left, which is essentially the question of whether you foresee that this region of the US will need a full-scale testing, turbine testing facility, like Met or Østerild that we know from some of the Nordic countries. Is that anything you're thinking would be relevant? And maybe as part of that, how is sort of like regional collaboration looking, you think, in the future? Anyone dare to take that one? Yeah, go ahead.
I can start. I mean, I think Now RDC is actually a great vehicle to help facilitate that collaboration. I mean, I have a number of states that are members, including New Jersey, so we're involved in a number of different projects. Bruce mentioned Innovate UK. That's something that we're involved in as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I think we need to learn from Europe and lessons that have already been learned, perhaps the hard way, and make sure that we're working together. And that's that goes for supply chain, that goes for transmission, that goes for innovation research. So I think we need to identify sort of the needs, look at who is best positioned to move forward on them, and then make sure that there's access to them, right? So it doesn't make sense for us to build a offshore wind innovation facility in New Jersey and only New Jersey, companies or universities can access that. That is absolutely not what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to do our part, take a leadership role, build a facility or facilities or programs that are really here to support the industry and the region as a whole.
Thank you. Well, you want to talk a little bit about maybe just in the regional collaboration part of this question?
Yeah, we as New York City are really eager to partner with our colleagues that are oftentimes operating at the state level. And so I think in the capacity that we can act as a municipality, we do. And so we have informal connections with the NJEDA on our MWBE front, MWDBE front. Bruce and I were on a trip to Norway along with you, Tona, over in the early fall to kind of explore what other testing facilities, particularly for the offshore wind industry, looks like abroad, to bring those lessons back home. But we are really looking towards our state leaders to really broker formal relationships, whether that's through an MOU or otherwise, to really codify those working relationships. But we are obviously, of course, working at the staff level across many different entities, across local and state and federal bodies.
Yeah, I don't have anything unique to add. I think they hit it right. We agree. We see the Now RDC as being a really good forum for some of these discussions and ideation around bringing industry, bringing our federal partners, bringing our state colleagues, bringing our local partners together on bigger items. I guess the other thing I would say is that for folks sort of listening to us, you might be sort of asking, is all this sort of necessary and needed? And I think it was Sam who sort of talked about demand out there. And I guess from where we see, it's sort of yes, and probably more if the needs and the pace of solution and technology and new approaches and innovations across not just offshore wind or renewable energy, but into what we're calling climate tech is so critically important. We had the opportunity to join Greentown Labs and Vineyard Wind and two offshore wind challenges, and just in those calls for applicants into the cohorts, you're literally getting close to 100 of really promising technologies and IPs, and we can select 3 to mentor, and that's not quite right, but a half dozen. So the needs is there, and I think it's on us to make the public sector investments prudently to be able to support this important need.
Amazing. Then we have like few minutes left, and I want to sort of like just use that a little bit as a warm-up to where we're going, which is seeing lots of innovations that are sort of like coming along. So I want to ask you, if you have to choose a couple of the innovations you're most excited to see sort of like tested in your region or state, are you brave enough to give us a few examples of what you're excited to see? You start, Jen. I can feel it. You got it.
There's definitely so much. I missed a lot of today's session, so I'm sure you already heard a lot from today. I think there's, the 5 areas that we are focusing on are, they're ones that are ones that we're very committed to pursuing. As I mentioned before, I think there's a lot around transmission. I think that's a really critical piece of this puzzle that we're all trying to solve together. And then we have to stay on top of environmental impact assessment. If we don't do that, we're not doing it right, and that's not okay. So I think those are 2 for me that I would say, but not ignoring all the other very important parts.
We're not excluding anyone, not at all. Sam, you have a couple of favorites you want to see tested here in the city?
I'm really excited about innovations in transmission and grid modernization. I would love to kind of see a lot of like alternative chemistry batteries. That's been an area that I've been particularly excited about. And technologies in O&M. I think we as New York City are fortunate that we're planning to have a bunch of O&M facilities in and around the city, and so any innovations there. And then because New York City has one of the biggest potential aggregated demand needs for alternative fuels like hydrogen, I'm really excited about the Power to X space. So, yep.
Thank you, Sam. Bruce.
I guess I would say these and more, but my response would focus on floating offshore wind. And Massachusetts comes at this understanding that floating will be at least half our capacity to meet our forecasted demands by 2040. So as we've heard, deeper waters, further offshore, in some ways, modernizing a current technology, but there's so much both, through the installation and then through the sort of operation and maintenance scopes to improve, safety and access and coexistence. So, yeah, floating. That's my response.
Thank you so much. And before we give a warm hand and round of applause for these panelists, I want to alert you to a little bit of a logistical note for all of us who are here in person, because the next part of the program is precisely a technology showcase of some of these many amazing and upcoming innovations within the offshore wind space, which takes place at New Lab. New Lab is as we heard this morning, it's a brisk 20-minute walk for those who are really needing some air. But for the rest of us, there will be a shuttle bus that leaves from outside this building. If you just enter and go to the big Christmas tree and go left, there will be a bus that takes all of us there. It will run twice, so if you don't make the bus the first time, no panic. It will come back and pick the rest of you up. And then we'll all head out to New Lab. Once the reception and technology showcase at New Lab is over in a couple of hours, you will have to find your own way home. So please be advised, the bus will not be coming and picking you up, so we are leaving you sort of like on your own there. But with all that being said, please give a warm hand to my wonderful panelists. And we will see you at New Lab. Thank you.